Have you ever used a plastic bag? I'm sure you have. And of course, I have used a plastic bag countless times. But what are you going to do with that plastic bag? I actually know the answer. You're probably going to throw it away immediately after you use it, just once. Just once. In 1 minute, people throw away 2 million plastic bags, and people throw away 1 million plastic bottles, and 15 tons of plastic waste ends up in the ocean. To teach children how to protect the earth from plastic pollution, there have been so many environmental education programs. But the problem is, environmental education can be pretty boring to children, and it does not really help them to take actual actions. And even worse, children do not inform other people on what they're doing to reduce the amount of plastic waste. So today, I'm here to present to you a new environmental educational program. This new program is called Plasticity. Plasticity is a facility where children can learn something about the plastic pollution through fun experience. And additionally, it also promotes collaboration, which I think is extremely important. Plasticity consists of 3 parts. Upcycle Factory is going to completely change the way children think about plastics. And plastic-free restaurant is going to help children realize how bad plastic pollution is. And plastic clothes is designed to be a place where children can design their own clothes. Okay, so let me explain why upcycle is really important and why it's good to educate children. First of all, plastic materials cannot be recycled forever. They can be recycled up to only just 2 or 3 times. Even though we are currently producing around 400 million tons of plastic waste a year. That's why some people call it not recycle, but downcycle. And upcycling is a process of creating something more valuable out of used plastics so that we can use plastics technically forever. And the children can get really, really creative when it comes to craft. So in this facility, children can create something like pencil case, vase, watering can, wallets, or even artwork. By actually creating them, they're going to start thinking that plastics that they used to think are waste are no waste anymore. And I think this is how used plastics should be used over and over and over again. But what can parents do while their children are doing an activity? I believe that 99% of parents love watching their children having fun. So this is one thing parents can do. And they can also participate in the activity and have fun together with children. Okay. The second part of plasticity is plastic-free restaurant. The reason why I chose restaurant to educate the children about the plastic pollution is cooking is actually one of the best ways to reduce the amount of plastic waste and to get more tasty, healthier food. So in the restaurant, children can make pancakes, which are really easy to make and which can be made without a knife that could possibly hurt children. There are also 2 reasons why I chose pancakes to educate children. First, we need to use cutlery to eat a pancake. So it's going to help children realize how much plastic cutlery we use. And the second, packaging and plastic cutlery are the dominant generator of plastic waste. It produces around 160 million tons of plastic waste a year. And this is actually more than 40% of all the plastic waste. To make this process more efficient, I'm going to divide the children into 2 groups. School-age children between 6 and 11, and adolescent children between 12 and 15. At some point in the process of making a pancake, children get asked questions about plastic pollution, such as how much plastic waste are we producing a year? How many times can plastic be recycled? Which industrial sector generates the most plastic waste? And they have to answer these questions correctly to continue cooking. And if they cannot, a part-time employee will help them to understand what the problem is. And after they finish cooking, I recommend them to talk about the things that they've just learned with their family or friends. Lastly, let me talk about the plastic clothes. When I was in elementary school, there was one class where my teacher asked us to go outside and pick up some trashes because it was going to help our neighborhood cleaner. And we did. I felt quite good about what I did. And on that day, I came back home and my mom said, "How are classes today?" And I said, "It was fine." Even though I did something, I did not tell my mom that we need to do something like this. Although plastic pollution is a really, really big problem that we all have to care about, just only a few of us actually take actions to get more and more people involved. Environment education should be fun and helpful, but I think we need one more thing: collective action. So plastic clothes is designed to promote collective action. So in the Apparel store, you can buy t-shirts, hats, sunglasses, shoes, socks, and so on. And these are all made of recycled plastic bottles. And there are two types of t-shirts that people can buy. One type of t-shirts is all designed by children, and the other type of t-shirts is all designed by professionals. And by designing their own clothes by children themselves, they're going to feel more connected to the clothes. And I really expect them to inform other people on what they're doing to reduce the amount of plastic waste, which I think is buying clothes made of recycled plastic bottles. And in this era of social media, it's been getting easier and easier to let other people know what you're doing and what you're wearing. So I'm going to encourage their parents to post a picture of plastic clothes on social media to raise awareness. So when I was coming up with the idea of plasticity, I was asking myself a lot of questions about location and the cost, because plasticity is really different from other educational programs that have been around for long. And I think it's better to build this facility in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, such as India, Nepal, Morocco, and Egypt. That's because across many countries in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, between 80 and 90% of plastic waste is inadequately disposed of, and therefore at risk of polluting rivers and oceans. Okay, so now we know where to build, but some of you might be wondering, how can I afford them though? Well, it is actually way cheaper to build a house out of recycled plastic bricks. A usual house costs around $180,000, which I think is extremely expensive. On the other hand, plastic house costs only $7,000. So I think it would be really cheap to build this facility all over the world. Finally, there are three things that plasticity can achieve. First, plasticity can change the way children think about plastics. And the second, plasticity can educate children more efficiently. And the third, plasticity can promote collective action. I would like to end my presentation with a quote by great philosopher Aristotle. Good habits formed at youth make all the difference. We need to make the difference together. Here's a list of websites and articles that I used to make this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kinoshita. Now we'll go to the judges for questions.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I see the value of educating children. I'm not entirely sure whether you can educate the parents. How do you go about it?
Thank you for the question first. I'm not really trying to educate parents. I'm only focusing on educating children themselves. So
or to put my question differently, okay. How do you try to get the parents on board of this idea of educating children along the lines that you suggest?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
How do you get the support of the parents?
Okay. That's a really good question. I think, even though it's hard to make like adults, like parents, care about the plastics, but like it's an educational program, and as I said in the presentation, like it's true that like just only in a freedom has actually take actions to get more people involved. But I think it's also true that there are a certain amount of people who care about plastics who are trying to be eco-friendly. So that's like my first target. And like after I let them to come to the facility, I'm going to target other group of people. Does that answer the question?
Thank you very much. I just raised that question because plastic waste is a very huge problem.
Yeah.
And that message has to be spread to all kinds of people, including parents. And I think there are people who are working very hard on it. And I hope that your suggestion would be a very important part of all that. But when I say important part of all that, including the question of educating parents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now to the second judge.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And I understand there are three components of the plastic cities which you are now proposing. And among these three elements, and what actions do you want to encourage for the children's environmental program to take? My point is maybe through your program and the knowledge on the implication of environmental impact. Now, what kind of action you are going to introduce, and what kind of knowledge they can take from such action?
Thank you very much for the question. I've been thinking about it a lot, and as I said in the presentation, the main difference between plasticity and other environmental educational program is like it promotes collective action and it promotes something that children can do like in everyday life. So I think what children can do after they come to this facility is probably like, upcycling. Upcycle factory is going to completely change the way children think about the plastics. So maybe next time they drink something out of plastic bottle, I think they're going to start thinking differently. And there's so many. I think more than 90% of people drink something like out of plastic bottle like almost every day. So like I'm trying to let children do something good for the environment every day. Not like, as I said in the presentation, like in the class, I picked up some trash on the street. It was good. It was great. I learned something. But like. And after that day, I didn't do anything. Like I didn't think like on the way to school, okay, I'm gonna pick up this trash because it's good for the environment. I didn't do any of these kind of things. So I'm trying to let children do something good for the environment every day.
Good. Thank you very much. I think this explanation is very useful to understand what you are now proposing. Because the interlink between actions and the knowledge learning, it is very important as the environmental education program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Takemoto. And now we'll go to the audience for questions. Does anybody have? There's a gentleman over here.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm Shuto Yotsumoto from Tokyo University.
Thank you.
And your presentation was so sobering. I learned a lot. But I got one question. So you talked about like a plastic house, like it's really it's really easy to build and like not expensive. But I think you mean increasing the amount of like that kind of houses means like using more plastic, and it sounds like not eco-friendly. But what do you think about it?
Thank you for the question. It is actually really important to build a house out of recycled plastic bricks because plastic bricks is made of like plastic bottles, like a plastic waste. And there's actually one thing that many people don't know about the plastic waste. Like less than 20% of plastic waste is being recycled. And actually almost 80% of plastic is going to landfill or ended up in natural environment. And I think it's horrible. So there are like so many problems that I cannot talk about now, but like, it's really eco-friendly to build a house out of recycled plastic bricks because it's trying to recycle more and more plastic waste that could have gone to landfill or something like that. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's a lady at the back who had her hand up. Yes?
My name is Natsumi Kinjo. I'm from Kansai University. Similar question as well. Like you said, plastic houses. For me, I think it could be burned. What do you think about it? It's cheap, but it could be burned.
Could it be burned?
It could be burned. Yep.
Thank you for the question. There's also one thing that I could not mention in the presentation because of the limited amount of time. Plastic house is really great. It actually has some features such as like heat insulation or earthquake resistance. And the recycled plastic bricks has like some additives in it that makes it like heat insulate. So yeah, people don't really have to worry about it's gonna be burned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have time for 2 more questions. Does anybody in the audience? Okay, we have a gentleman here in the glasses. Anybody else?
Thank you for the a theme that we all have to consider about. I'm from Hosei University. My name is Yamato. I have one question about your 3 activities that you propose to the children about Upcycle Factory. I was wondering why you chose recycling, not reducing, since there's a risk of throwing away after the 2 or 3 times of recycling.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
So why did you choose recycling, not reducing plastic, since recycling has a risk of being waste after it's been recycled a couple times?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think what you're saying right now is like absolutely true. You're right, but the problem is, it's pretty much impossible in modern era to live without any plastics. It's almost impossible. It's like every time you use plastics, like I mean, you could avoid using plastics like every day, but like it's almost impossible. And every time people use plastics, they can actually upcycle it, not recycle. It's upcycle. They can actually upcycle that plastic that they've just bought. So it's actually reducing the amount of plastic waste, and I think it's really good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the lady in white, last question.
I'm from Kyoto University. I'm Ryoko Araki. Thank you for your great presentation. I have a question about the level of understanding towards plastic material in countries you want to target to, like sub-Saharan Africa or Asian countries. I've never been to there, but in some South Asian country, people just throw away the plastic things because they think it's gonna decompose in the soil, like papers or wood materials. So I think if you have some idea of at what level the people understanding about plastic material, maybe the education program would be more effective. So I want to ask about that.
Thank you for the question. What do you mean is like people in Southeast Asia or like South Asian countries just throwing trashes like on the street without carrying it?
So.
And what am I gonna do about it? Is that your question?
My Southeast Asian country is just an example, but like in sorry, and for example, in Japan, for example, parents are already fully informed about recycling, but maybe in some other countries, maybe the notion of recycle is not fully understood. So, like, the education program should be adjusted to the level of knowledge of the majority of people in those countries. So, what about what is your opinion towards that?
As I said in answering previous questions, that's what you're saying is true. There are not so many people in like developing countries who care about environmental, environment as much as people in developed countries. But my opinion is that there I think enough amount of people who care about plastics, and my plan is to focus on letting these people come to the facility. So like I'm not trying to let all the people in that country to come to the facility. So like that's my plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Kinoshita, for an excellent presentation.
ありがとうございました。